I think that broker dealers said it best. There's a lot of pressure on them today for information about the market, success, non-successful, what works, what doesn't work, and all that. So today we've been hearing to the lawyers, if you've been part of that, we've been hearing from the investor acquisition firms, we've been hearing about the different verticals, IR, PR, we're now hearing about ratings and research, which, for any CEO, that's an exciting moment. But for the 5 of you that are here, or 6, I learned how to count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do not contact him. Do not contact him. Whatever you do not. If so where we are today is exciting. For the very first time, we're actually bringing CEOs of companies that are either one, they finished their capital raise, they've done their RegA. You're going to meet Jeff at LegionM. And those that are in the middle of their capital raise, which you're going to meet Michael Jansen from CityZenith, Ryan Bettencourt from Legion Works, and some that are just getting started, finished, Sally Outlaw at Worthy Financial, and one that's just getting started. Boy, his journey has been unbelievable. Greg Anderson from Ceres, and of course, my colleague Jordan Lamb from Enjoy Moxie. I hope I said that correctly. I did? Okay, good. So
the only thing you didn't do, Oscar, is you didn't tell Greg to wear black. I mean, all of us are just clearly not as cool.
Gray, to be
honest. Yeah, that's the memo.
Yeah, clearly. So, clearly we're way cooler.
The rules of the game are as follow, because I want to keep everybody compliant. We've never done this before. So this is really to talk about the journey as CEOs that you undertook. And obviously each of you have something very unique, and part of it is what you do. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to come at you and just tell us about your company and give us an idea of, you heard what everybody else is saying. Did you follow that, or did you go on your own route for that? So I'm going to start with ladies first. I'm going to go to you, Sally, first, and just want to get a little bit of takeaway, because you've done this now twice. You raised $100 million so far using RegA. You're successful. You're going to do another RegA for another 50 million. So clearly you like it. So well, sorry, I mean, you like it so much you went back the second time.
That's going a little bit overboard. No, I do like it. Obviously most of us are in this space because we want to, attract retail investors. We want to, in my case, our goal was to help, everyday Americans build a nest egg. So what we've done is a little bit different maybe than most of the other RegAs I've heard about today. I've tuned into a couple panels. Most of the RegA activity I've been hearing about is equity, right? Where people are selling, shares in their own company, BrewDog or what have you, to raise money for their own company. What we've done is we took RegA and we really used that framework to create a debt product. And what we've done is we've created really $10, 5% interest earning bonds, and they're totally liquid. The panel previous to us talked about liquidity in RegA, and that again, more with the equity framework, but we created a debt product with RegA. And, as you mentioned, we've sold through $100 million of that product. We did a first offering of 50 million. That was called Worthy Peer Capital. And then we sold through that 50 million. We created another entity, Worthy Peer Capital 2. And now we've sold through that 50 million. And we just launched last week Worthy Community Bonds for another 50 million. As you know, there's that $50 million cap. So we have to create new entities with new assets in order to continue within a 12-month period to be able to sell to the public. So we've had a lot of success with it. The journey was difficult at first and then got easier. Someone in the last panel said, people are starting to see what works in this space. And that's what happens, right? You might take 6-7 months to get that first RegA approved or qualified. And then you learn in that process. And the second one went faster and the third one went even faster. So you live and learn and you figure out, where the SEC falls and how they're viewing, your framework and your product. And that's helped us a lot, obviously, get through to where we are today.
So I'm going to ask you just 2 short questions because I'll get around. So number one, obviously you heard broker dealer. So did all of your races till now, did you go with a broker dealer, or at the time when you started, that wasn't the case?
We have not used a broker dealer. We are looking to do an equity raise, and we'll use one for that. Because to me, that's a different product. We're just really an issuer of a debt product. We're a bond issuer. They're called worthy bonds. So we just sell them directly through our Worthy Bonds website. And we do have obviously a payment processor, and they have to do the ID identification verification and fraud checks and all those sorts of things. But we're not worried about the KYC, so to speak. We're not an investment advisor. We're not a money manager. We're really just an issuer selling this bond to the public. We have to obviously do all the full disclosure like everyone else does going through RegA, and we link to our offering statements, and they have to read through that and accept those risks and disclosures. But we did not use RegA. We did have to knock on those 7 or 8 state doors, and I am a registered investment advisor, and I think that helped, because I think in 3 or 4 of those states you had to either have that exam that I took or some sort of license in order to sell in that state. So between my having that Series 65 license and us having lawyers, obviously, that worked with those 7 or 8 states, we got through those 8 states. We're doing it again now for the 3rd time. Unfortunately, every time you create a new entity, you have to go back to those 7 or 8 states. So we did get it through. The first 2 times we've done it ourselves without a lawyer. Without a broker dealer the 3rd time. But when we do an equity raise with RegA, we'll definitely use a broker dealer.
Perfect. Yeah. And I'm going to go to Jeff now, one of the co-founders of LegionM, so who is completed as well his RegA at the moment. And his RegA was done very different than what we've talked about. There's been this whole discussion, doing it on your website or not. And obviously he was one of the early entrants into the market. And you ended up doing your RegA on WeFunder. So when you started that path, did you decide between WeFunder and a broker dealer? And why did you make that decision at that particular time?
Yeah, it's a great question. For us, our journey actually started with RegCF, because we were one of the very first companies. In fact, on May 16th, 2016 at 9 a.m., we were literally one of the first companies in the world, well, in the US, I guess, to file for a RegCF. And so we started there. And then based on the success of the RegCF, we went and did a RegA. And then we've gone back and done a RegCF. And for a while, we had a RegA and a RegCF. And so it's kind of a little bit of an alphabet soup, along with some Reg D in there for good measure for accredited investors. And our company is a little different probably than a lot of companies, because the only reason that our company exists is because of the Jobs Act. Our foundational premise is we're a company that makes movies and TV shows. And our foundational premise is that an entertainment company that's owned by a large group of fans has inherent competitive advantages just because of the fact that it's owned by a large group of fans. So for us, it's not this is a different route of raising money. It is literally the whole foundation of our business. And so to answer your question, we started off with WeFunder, and on RegCF, you have to go on a platform. And we've established a great relationship with those guys. And because of that, when we went to go shift gears to do a RegA, we just stayed on that platform. And we have done a little bit of stuff off platform on our own. We have not worked with a broker dealer. And it's funny. I feel like the times are changing, and when we started 4 years ago, it was a dramatically different landscape. And so today, I think we're very interested in talking to broker dealers. But at the time, it didn't seem like a good fit for us, because we were not going after large money investors. We've got kind of the opposite philosophy. If you're trying to build a legion of fans, you're not going after whale investors the way that you traditionally would if you're raising money through angel investors or something like that. We're looking specifically to get $100 investors. And that was really problematic at the time with the broker dealers, just because the level of overhead that they had to go through in order to make $100 investment. And back at the time, half the people thought it was Kickstarter, right? And so it was just really, it's changed dramatically.
We've come a long way since then, Jeff. You're right. I mean, 4 years ago, and that's, if you heard the last panel, Etan and Elliot and all of them were talking about, they call it a game, I call it a journey, because it's going to go on and evolving. How you started 4 years ago may not work today. And it's important for everyone who's listening here that, Sally, you have to really understand, she said something really interesting about her. She's a registered individual. Most CEOs are not registered. So pay attention to that, because that's had an implication why you need broker dealers. But even when you are registered, getting professionals on your side, given that the team sport has now grown. So the two of you have gone through the, you're already done, and I know you'll do it again, I'm sure. But I got two speakers right now, two CEOs here that are just starting their journey. Well, not just starting, but they're getting started today in 2020 COVID-19 era, right? COVID-19 era, what do we know? The first 6 months, 280% increase of online investing over last year. So boy, are you coming in at a great time, but as the rules have changed. So Jordan, I'll start with you first. I mean, Moxie, enjoy Moxie, my apologies. It's, you and I had a great conversation. I love the passion you have for your company, what you've been building, the differentiators, but tell us the journey that, you were telling me everything you absorbed to get where you are and choosing all the things you needed to be successful.
Ooh, where to start? Apologies in advance for the background noise. I'm starting to get back into travel life. So I'm actually in McCarran Airport right now. But I actually got really turned on to the entire landscape of RegA through a Core Connects webinar that I watched that was taped, I think, back in March. And I had known about it for a little while before that, but it had exactly what Jeff mentioned, this like kind of a optics of though it was just a Kickstarter thing. The breadth of what the opportunity represented was very unclear. And I think that's because it really hadn't hit critical mass yet, at least not in any of the spheres that I in the cannabis world was aware of. And so understanding and seeing the landscape of the different service providers and how they interacted with one another was kind of the first step of, untangling the knot in the dark, so to speak. But once you understand kind of everyone's place in that world, and how it plays into this ecosystem that really is, it feels more like a community than an industry to me at this point. It's a grouping of people that see this ability to change the entire paradigm of finance and do so in a manner that really decentralizes the power away from banking and more to where it belongs ultimately amongst the visionaries and the operators of these companies that have audacious goals that they actually have the potential of achieving.
That's great. And your other colleague who I'm going to bring in is Greg. I mean, your journey, you got a viable business, you generate revenue, which is great. I mean, you and I had a conversation about this, Jordan, and obviously I'm not going to say it's vanilla, but you're doing a RegA, and it's pretty straight through, going through the process as you might have heard some of the lawyers like Marty, Jamie, Louis. The process doesn't take very much anymore in the legals. But this next CEO I'm going to tell you about, let's see if you all have the patience as he has. I think they're 2.5 years in. So what he is about to embark on, what he is about to get qualified on, is going to bring a brand new dynamic to RegA. Greg Anderson, CEO and co-founder of Ceres Coin, a new fully qualified stablecoin.
Not yet fully qualified.
Not yet fully qualified.
Only another 2 years to go.
We're 2.5 years into it, Oscar. Let's not fumble it right before Miss Pierce comes on.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure she knew you.
Yeah. So it has been I know you talked to us a little bit about a journey. You call it Jordan's thing, a vanilla. I guess ours a Neapolitan offering that we have. We started a couple years ago trying to figure out a way to facilitate financial transactions in legal cannabis. And at that time, this is about 2016, ICOs were kind of blowing up and whatnot. And we saw these ICOs as a quick and easy way to raise money. And that's what we thought it was all about. And we have obviously progressed significantly since that point. And we took our original offering of a security, recognizing that these securities with their volatility are not very good for transactional vehicles. So we bifurcated our offering and we created a stable coin, which is the vehicle that moves within the ecosystem. So what we have been doing for the last 2 years with the SEC is helping them get their hands around this stable coin as a security. And so it trades and acts like a security, and it is a security. And so we're able to use that security to eliminate the cash out of the ecosystem. By having it as security and using a broker dealer, which I know you want to refer to, that all of those folks that come into our ecosystem and using this stable coin have gone through KYC and AML, which provides the regulatory oversight that the players in the system want to do. So it's a pretty exciting thing. Now we're working in legal cannabis. We have a stable coin offering. We have a Reg A offering, and all these things kind of blow up our investors' minds. Like, you know, this is too much for us to handle. And sometimes we are trying to boil the ocean, it seems like. But the technology that is available and these tools that we have available for us now are going to allow the stable coin to be used in other industries outside of cannabis. And that's kind of our petri dish right now. But using these, you know, in these new spaces, these opportunities with these new tools is just too much fun right now.
I like the way you say this. It is a lot of fun. It really is, because if, you know, this is not a crypto event, but when you think of crypto, nobody ever thinks about using it. That's what I like about this. It's an usable thing. So you know, we're all, you know, rooting for you.
The use case, you know, between that and then having the secondary markets that like Rialto with their ATS is providing, and it just is all coming together at a time that's going to really allow this to be a functional thing.
Perfect. Thank you. So the last two CEOs we have here are right in the middle of their race. So, you know, they're not at the beginning. They were there before. They're not at the end yet. I'm sure they wish they were. I know Michael Jansen does. I feel the neck. So Ryan and Michael are both, interesting enough, they're both doing a Reg A, and they both started differently, and they both gone with little bumps along the road. And I really want, you know, the thing that I want the audience to understand is it's great to know what the company's doing. It's great, but, you know, choosing your partners right. And I know, Michael, you have an experience. Ryan, you as well. We don't need to go into the details who they are, but both of these companies are at the moment on their offerings. So, Michael, let's start with you. So, because what you're about to do is you started with a Reg CF in one platform, then you moved over to another platform for a Reg A, and then you're going from there directly to your own website. What a journey, right? And lots of gray hair to go along with it, with all the grueling components of it. So
that's why he's wearing a hat. He's hiding his gray hair.
That's why he's hiding it.
I want to address the gray hair issue right away. So in between.
Oh, it's nice. It's nice and wavy. Damn it, I got to get that hair color next week.
The whole story behind that, which I'll tell in another conference. But no, thank you for having me here in the first place. Nice to meet everybody. Great to hear your stories. Happy to share ours. We did a CF on a different platform last year, and we knew nothing about crowdfunding. My background as an entrepreneur predates the Jobs Act. So my previous company, I schlepped a tote bag up and down Sand Hill Road and got funded by Sequoia Capital eventually and grew business number one. And then when business number two came around, everything was changing, including the fundraising environment. And somewhere around the time, I knew how to raise money from angels because I had done that before in my previous business. So I did it again in like the 2012, 13, 14 timeframe. And around 2015, 16, I got introduced to crowdfunding in the UK. Actually, you guys may or may not know that the UK predates us, the Jobs Act. Their peak of crowdfunding was actually before us. I think we just surpassed them this year in volume or something like that. But anyway, so we got into that scene because we had a London-based company and we were able to structure things in such a way that we could apply for this type of funding. And I did a number of pitches and I raised about £4 million that way, which for a company which was kind of getting off the ground in a very, very difficult time was really a godsend at the time. And then I came back to the States and began thinking about, what we were going to do here. And, I had the experience of institutional money and I had it from end to end with one of the finest venture capital firms apparently in the world. And they are a very talented venture capital firm with a lot of success. I also felt that there were negatives to being funded by any VC. any private equity firm of various kinds. And that I remember difficulties I had in that relationship at certain times of the business where the structure becomes a real challenge for the company. I think many of you know about this. So the crowdfunding became a really interesting solution because you could, fund a company and then maintain control and then actually bring kind of regular people into the company and let them get rich as opposed to the LPs of these very fancy VCs and private equity firms, which is all really a very interesting thesis. And for us, to Jeff's point, it's this RegA journey is actually beginning to transform our company a bit because now that we have not 5, but thousands of investors, we start thinking differently about how we want to go out there and what kind of products we want to make, because now you have a community out there that's different from the one you had before. So I raised that money in about less than 3 months, the first $1 million last year. It was a successful CF. And we got lucky because we got endorsed by one of the publications in the first month, and then frankly never looked back. It was a very successful campaign. And so that can be good and bad. Sometimes having a home run on your first at bat can be the worst possible thing that can happen to you, because you think that, well, that's what I do, I hit home runs. And then we did our A+, and thought a lot of the old tricks would work, but it was a different arena. And I think what we learned and we're learning is that it itself is changing. So you make a decision, you think you're making all the right decisions based upon all the right parameters, and then things themselves, the parameters are changing. So, but I do think that, yes, we started on a platform and now we're going to our own. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. I think that we're doing okay kind of raise-wise, but we feel like a lot of the audience that we're generating is dying into the platform that we're on. And the attention that we create gets lost to some extent. If you will, it's kind of like being on a shelf in a grocery store with a lot of other products. And you create attention and people go into the grocery store and they forget what they're in there for. So there's a lot of, I think, loss of attention and inefficiency of marketing dollars of our own that we've discovered in this process that has us as a concern. And secondly, I think it's been talked about a lot earlier, just simple access to the data. We really want to build a community. We want to work with them. We recently launched a pledge in the company. We, not to talk about what we do, but to help the world cities decarbonize by donating our technology there. And we were able to use this A+ campaign to invite people to invest in the company, and some part of that will get used to help create this and donate this technology to their cities. So we're able to tie what we do into what regular people in those cities are experiencing, which we would never have thought of before if we were just raising money from a traditional institutional investors. So I'll let you know how it goes. The most recent exciting thing, like everything else, we don't know what's working or not working yet. I think the PR is working great so far. I think some of the social media stuff is still a learning process for us. The current platform we're with relies on Facebook, but I think a combination of tools is probably what people have seen to be more successful. So we recently changed our digital ad placement provider last week, just being very candid. Kind of these mid-season adjustments you make doing an A+. Ryan, I'm sure will have his stories. So, and
it's part of the journey. Look, I mean, there's no secret around the industry's gone through kind of a let's grow up really quickly. So there's been 2 bombs that's happened in the last 90 days to the industry. So,
sure,
and it's imperative that people understand, yes, you get qualified for this offering. Yes, you can do it without a lawyer. You can't do it without a broker-dealer. So why now are these pieces becoming so important? Because when you need to take the money, the financial institutions are now saying, you know what, no, we can't let you go off to the wild horse. We need somebody regulatory oversight your activities. So we've seen the bad already when things are done without these entities. And because of it, when you're in the middle of an offering, Michael has experienced that pain firsthand. And it's nothing he did. It's not of him. It could have happened to Sally, to Greg, to Jeff, or anybody at any given time. And it's coming down to the whole market where financial institutions, particular credit cards and ACH providers, are getting a little bit more concerned about this, not because of the coming in. They love that part. They love making money. It's the part where we get one bad apple that does it and the whole refund has to be done. Imagine that for them. We think it's simple. It's click of a button. It isn't. So,
But I know the other gentleman has to talk, but just to that point real quickly, I'll tell you, when you're grateful that you've got, supporters like good lawyers behind you is, in Florida, they knock on your door randomly. Our regulators are, licensed securities guys came 9 a.m. and showed their badges and says, we're coming in, let's see your books. Let's see your, audited financial. Let's, give us a list of every bondholder of your tens of thousands, who you sold in Florida. And, and show us every bank statement, every investment you made. I mean, you got to have your crap together, so to speak. So, it can seem fun to, interact with retail investors and engage with them and, and build this community, but you better have all your ducks in a row when the regulators come knocking. So you want to be able to sleep at night.
Yeah, you need to be responsible, and we'll get to that. So my last, our last CEO, and look at that, he's dead center there. He's been patiently waiting. CEO, one of the co-founders of Legion Works. That's right, we got 2 Legions. So I had to separate you two because otherwise people would get confused. And at first I almost did. LegionM Entertainment, which is pretty funky. And then of course, Legion Works. Ryan and I have been chit-chatting since he started, like most of you. I get to know you intimately. I love the journey because I'm going through it myself. So it's exciting to see what you're going through and the experiences you're having. And one area that I often feel is like picking your executive team, your board of directors, your advisors, the partners you choose around you, your broker dealers, your lawyers, and all that can impact. So Ryan, again, the floor is yours, my friend.
All right. So our journey is a little bit similar, or at least my journey is similar to Michael's, in that most of my experience as an entrepreneur has been building companies with institutional capital behind them. So VCs and larger angels. And as we got to the point that we started Legion Works, part of the premise was actually that within VCs and within angels, there was a hole. I'll stop short of saying that I feel that that's broken and that there's flaws within that space, but there certainly are holes, and that was part of our premise. So if that was part of our premise, we couldn't really go to VCs and raise capital saying we're actually trying to fill a hole that you guys create, and we're trying to fix flaws that you guys have within your space. So as we looked at where we're going to raise the capital, a year ago, last August or September, I had never heard of Regulation A. In full transparency, it wasn't something that had ever really been on my radar. I'd spent a lot of time going to the VCs that I knew, building relationships on Sand Hill Road and in San Francisco and New York and LA, raising capital from institutional investors and really trying to limit the number of investors that we had. Party rounds, as of last August, were considered those rounds that had more than 3 investors for me and my colleagues when we'd raised capital in the past. So going from 3 investors to now having over 700, and that's growing rapidly, is a new experience for me. So the journey has been interesting. The journey's been interesting as part of a year that we never could have seen coming, both financially and with everything going on in our lives. And so as I looked at RegA and quickly had to learn what RegA was and what RegA wasn't, the key for us really was to build the right relationships. So for our business, very early on in my career, I learned that when I didn't know something, I had to find the people that did. And when I didn't have access to the right ideas or the right knowledge, I had to find the people that had access to the right ideas and the right knowledge. And RegA, coming into it a year ago with very little knowledge, the first thing that I found that I really needed to spend my time doing. So thankfully, we have an advisor that helped us navigate RegA, and through that got introduced to great folks like Oscar, to our dealer broker, who we're very thankful to work with, to the foundational tech. We built our own platform. We jumped right into RegA right out of the gates and build our own platform using our technology know-how. But without those partnerships, without that access to those individuals, we never would have been able to navigate this journey. We started the process, literally writing up the documents last November. We were told that we would have everything in place by January. we mistakenly told our
You believe that? You believed it?
investors that we would have everything in place by January.
When did you actually, I have the same story, December, not November. When did you were told that they would be ready by, and when did you actually?
Yeah, so we were told in, let's see, we were told in November that we might be able to have it qualified by Christmas.
Qualified.
And at the latest, it would be the end of January. And we qualified.
Tell you what year? Did they tell you what year though?
Yeah, yeah.
I love it.
But there's been a lot of bumps in the road along that journey. I mean, going from thinking we would have everything ready to go in January at the latest, and that made for an interesting February, March, April, May, and June with investors that were ready to invest, that we've been courting over a period of time, making sure we had everything in place, making sure we kept our sanity with everything going on in the world. And so for us, the partners that we have had within that journey has allowed us to navigate that. I honestly think if we didn't have a dealer broker, we didn't have Oscar to learn from, and the other folks in the industry to learn from, I think we probably would have dropped out. And who knows, maybe we would have gone and raised institutional capital. Maybe we would have not, and put things on, cobwebbed it for a period of time. But thankfully, because of great partners, we've been able to uphold our vision, which is, again, we feel like there's a hole in institutional capital for the entrepreneur, and we felt the product of those holes as entrepreneurs. We also think there are holes in the way that investors can and can't get access to those deals. Again, like, to have to be rich to get rich is not, I think, how we think as a country and how we think as entrepreneurs. And when I can't look at certain family members in the face and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, you can't invest in it, that's not a particularly great thing. So we're thankful we've been able to have the partners to get to a point that we can uphold our vision.
Thanks, Ryan. That's I really appreciate that. That's the journey of a CEO it's not with ups and downs. And I remember the conversations you and I would have afterwards. Oscar, we're ready.
We're ready. No,
we're always ready.
No, we're ready. No, we actually got qualified, and then we had to retract it and then get
retract it and then do it all. Oh yeah, Ryan's case has been really interesting. So,
people were concerned we were going to be thought of as a SPAC, which, if you look at the public markets, being thought of as SPAC is a great thing unless you're within RegA, which we're not a SPAC, and we have to be very specific that we're not a SPAC. So.
Yeah, we had the same challenge because they said, well, you're an investment company. Because we are selling these bonds and we pool that capital, we pool the bond proceeds and then we lend it out into secured loans for growing American companies. They said, oh, you're taking that money and investing it in another security because, they felt like loans were securities. So we had to, I literally spent days digging through the RegA framework to find a definition of a security that we could get around. I mean, basically, if you do the kinds of lending we do, it's one of the only areas they don't consider to be a security. And that was able to, that little hole was what we were able to get through, to get the bonds approved or qualified, can't say approved. But, so it just takes a lot of digging and you have to be able to understand the regulations and understand you're trying to protect the investors. And, it's a long path.
Oh, and not just those parts, but when you consider what Greg is doing at Ceres Coin, it's changing, it's utilizing the regulation in a certain way, and then when you're also trying to add a different asset class, as you heard in the verticals. I mean, we're hearing about collectibles, fan clubs. I mean, look at what LegionM is doing. It's phenomenal. I mean, what are you at right now? 7,000 fans? I mean, like
25,000. We have 25,000.
Sorry, I mean, even I've lost count, right?
Yep.
And people, and I wrote about this. So, look, I've been writing about this because I really love the Jobs Act. I'm in love with it. I'm a Canadian. I just think it's the ultimate regulation. It's well balanced. For those who say, well, it's too difficult to get in because you need this. No, it's well balanced. It's there for the investors, it's there for you, and for the community at large, the regulatory providers, the broker dealers, the lawyers, the auditors, and everything else. And for the very first time, people are recognizing it that, yes, you need them all. Yes, at the beginning, you could do it without it because you had to build that roadblock, what LegionM did at first, and of course, what you did, Sally. But now it's fully team sport driven, and it's opening the minds of so many people. I'm seeing some phenomenal projects, I guess, per se, that I would never even thought of. But the fact that we can take that idea and then put it to fruition and get them to go through the process with their lawyers, broker dealers to get qualified, and then be available to the general public and make them fans. So my first article I wrote when equity crowdfunding was about to get launched was that making shareholders into customers and ambassadors, which is what you've done, Jeff, at LegionM, what BrewDog has done, and many others. I remember in a panel in 2015 getting into an argument with a VC who said, who on their planet would ever want thousands of shareholders in their company?
I think I was in the audience in that.
Well, it was ironic because I go, wait a minute, when I come and when I'm looking for capital for my company from you, the first thing you ask me is, how many customers do I have, right? And what I'm telling you now is I got 5,000 of them, 5,000 loyal customers who love our brand, who use our product and gonna go out there. I mean, how great is that? So
Oscar, think of it in the public markets. I mean, my kids are buying Netflix stocks because they're in their 20s. I mean, you buy, even the public markets, you buy affinity. You go to Starbucks, you buy your Starbucks stock. I have my Tesla stock because I love Tesla. Even in the public markets, a lot of us buy based on loving the brand and loving their product or using their product. So it makes total sense that would cross into the private markets like this.
Yeah, of course. And the journey is just beginning, but I firmly believe that you need to, as CEOs, all of us here, all 7 of us, we have a responsibility, which is we've been given this gift. It's great. And yes, we're asking the commission to increase it to 75 million. That would be phenomenal. But the gift we've been given is phenomenal. But it comes with a responsibility. The responsibility is to manage them, to communicate with them, and get them involved. I mean, Jeff, what you guys doing, CityZenith, Michael, same thing. I mean, you guys are doing a phenomenal job. I know Enjoy Moxie is just getting started. Greg Anderson at your group is just getting that whole process started, and Legion works as well. So it is a embodiment, bringing everyone together. So here's my last question. I need you all just to answer 3 questions. So imagine you're sitting in just like Jordan was a year ago watching the videos. If he was to watch this video from each of you, what 3 items do you think is so important that they should, when they're looking to doing a RegA, what 3 things do you think are important that they should consider when they're doing it, or what kind of, what are the items that you think should be important? So I'll ask Michael Jansen first. Michael.
I was going to hope I could go last.
Okay, you want to go? All right, man. I'm good with that. I'll give you the last spot on that.
Many more seasoned people out here.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, fair enough. Jeff?
Well, how about Oscar and CoreConnects and Sarah Hanks at CrowdCheck to put in a shameless plug for 2 of our favorite partners. But no, I think surrounding yourself with people that understand the space, and I think that's way more possible today than it was a few years ago. But I think that's absolutely fundamental. If you're an entrepreneur, you're not probably used to things like audited financial statements and 100-page SEC disclosures, but that stuff is really important and you've got to get it right. So I think that's a critical thing. The other thing I'd say is, it's what you were talking about, touching on, Oscar, is that if you start to look at your investors as more than just a source of capital, but as a community, and figure out how you can leverage it, that's where the Jobs Act becomes fundamentally transformational. Because, up until now, if you think about it, every single company, every large public company has had to follow a path that was controlled by the IPO process. And the fact that you can go out to people, you can get them involved in your company, and you can get them involved with your decision making. I know that BrewDog uses them to help, taste test new designs. We use our investors to leverage the wisdom of the crowd to choose movies at Sundance And we've got data now that shows that the films that our community chooses have better like Rotten Tomato scores than the films that we would have chosen if it was just us. And so I think that figuring out ways that you can make your investors part of the company, it unlocks so much power. And all those people, because we met the same people saying, you're crazy to want all these investors in your company. But I think as we've gotten into it, I think that it's absolutely key.
Perfect. Thank you. Jordan?
Yeah, I guess what I would echo so far for myself, because I'm still very early on, but normally when you go into finance as an entrepreneur, you've got a lot of advisors, a lot of people that you rely on for that like very serious expertise, and it feels very opaque. You know, I recall even, you know, because we've raised institutional capital before now embarking on this RegA journey, and you know, I'm out there doing the roadshow while there's a whole team of others that are putting the rest of the pieces in place. And so you I don't want to say lose track of the details, but it's impossible to have your finger on the pulse of everything that's going on. And RegA, while at the outset is a little bit daunting because you've got the SEC, FINRA, broker deal, all these terms that just, you know, create a bit of a swimming head. It's not that indiscernible. And it's probably more important than any other version of finance that I've seen for you as the CEO to really have your head wrapped around it. Because once you do, you can move forward with a level of confidence that it can help mitigate the risk of you know, running into roadblocks, or at least ensuring that there's a higher likelihood of success. Now, I'm saying this pre-qualification, so let's talk again in a little while. But
it's fair enough. Fair enough. Sally, we got 2 minutes. Sally,
yeah, real quick. Well, it's exactly what he said. I mean, okay. I think the number one for us is customer relationship. I mean, we call them our worthies, and they all wear T-shirts that say "I am worthy" on it. And they send us pictures of "I am worthy" stickers on their babies and their dogs. You know, it's like we just love them. You know, we get a lot of feedback, and you know, they're just very involved in our business. So I think that customer engagement piece, that customer relationship piece, is hugely important before and after, you know, using RegA. And one more thing I want to slip in is time horizon. I mean, based on the comments here and what we went through initially, you give yourself more time than you think, you know, to get through the process and get out the door, you know, with your product or your raise, whatever, you know, in our case, it's a product, but it takes more money and it takes longer than you think. And of course, those resources, I echo, you know, we've got great lawyers. We have a CFO who's, you know, run public companies. You know, right now, since we have 3 RegAs, he's like, there's only 2 days a year where I'm not preparing for an audit, you know, or I'm not doing a report. So it's, I mean, there's a lot that comes with it. Not just do your RegA and you're done. There's a ton of compliance, you know, and just stuff you have to keep up with. So just make sure you've got the time and the money to see all that through.
Perfect. So Greg, Ryan, Michael, you guys got 1 minute, 30 seconds each, 3 items for CEOs that you think they should consider, obviously outside of what the others have said.
Real quick, use case for the RegA, make sure that the RegA is the proper tool for us going to, you know, trying to use the security as a retail mechanism, having that, and then having a committed team, both financially and touching on what Jeff said with your legal and broker dealer and transfer agent, all that stuff, because it is a long process. There is not a roadmap out there, so you're creating new paths. So just be prepared for that.
Ryan?
First, who's going to go on the journey with you as partners? That's key. Second, how do you talk about what you're doing and your vision to a much broader set of potential investors, some that are very sophisticated, some that are just learning, and how do you do that in such a way that everybody understands what you're doing? And then third, how do you create a relationship with your investors that allows them to become part of the journey, both transactionally and making it easy on them to invest, but also, as Jeff mentioned, takes them along on the journey so they can learn and feel part of what you're doing and be proud of being part of what you're doing.
Thank you. And Michael, the best to last.
He had all that time to come up with some really great things.
Yeah. Better
no
be
pressure.
Good.
Yeah.
Plagiarize and synthesize everybody said. I mean, everything that everybody said is perfect. Have a close circle of good people with experience in this who are there to fight the fight with you. I feel like I do. Thank you, Oscar. Thank you, Ceres. People who are really been terrific for us. Thank you, Paul. To Ryan's point, yes, you have a new family suddenly. You have thousands of people around you, and you have to sort of accept the fact that you've got this new large community, And if you can engage them and leverage them, I think you can do extraordinary things. We're just beginning to do that, but we've had customers invest, individuals, and it's a wonderful thing. And lastly, someone told me this once, every RegA requires a little unique marketing magic, and everyone's got to figure that out for themselves. And so, you know, that's our everyone's challenge. We're trying different things. Some things are working better than others. And I think that was wise advice.
That's perfect. You know, kudos to all of you. I mean, in the journey that you're all undertaking, and obviously every speaker today is grateful that you've taken it because we're all working with you. For those who already completed it, hopefully you'll revisit the RegA again. For those who are doing it already for the third time, thank you. And for those just getting started, the journey is just beginning. Take good lesson to the fact of this is not just shareholders. These are people, ambassadors. We're calling them gladiators. You know, I love the worthy. I love what the, you know, LegionM is doing. Everybody, you can create that little community on your own. So I want to thank you all today. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I'll be skipping you off. Right now, we have the main event coming. This is an exciting